Welcome to today's episode of Confessions of a Cleaning Business Owner. And today we're going to be talking about, can I swap to the agency model? We talked about this a little bit in the last podcast, but Diane, talk to me first of all, what is the agency model?
Well, unlike what I call the fully managed model, which is where all the cleaners are employed, the client pays the cleaning business and the cleaning business pays the cleaners. The main thing about the agency model is the agency connects the clients with self-employed cleaners. Instead of employing the cleaners directly, the agency is like a middleman, or I like to call it a matchmaker. It's kind of a nice way of looking at it. It's matching the right clients with the right cleaners, and that the agency is still doing all the marketing and client acquisition and probably a good chunk of the scheduling and hopefully the quality control. But the cleaners themselves, they're responsible for their own taxes, their own insurance, and the supplies, depending on the agreement. The client might provide that, and usually the client pays the cleaner direct, and then they pay an agency fee to the agency. That's the pure agency model, shall we say.
So this is what we're seeing when I'm seeing it only costs £14 an hour to have a cleaner. What that is possibly the agency model. On the lowest rate, you can get a cleaner, you pay them directly, but you are going to be paying an agency fee on top of that.
Yeah, and that's the core thing. I think from the client's point of view, the agency model is going to be cheaper because the agency does not have the costs of a fully managed cleaning service, and the cleaner is self-employed, so they get paid, like say, £14 an hour, £15 an hour. So it's going to work out cheaper. And also, one of the biggest benefits of the agency model for the cleaning business, we've talked about this, is VAT, because there's a lot, if you're charging £5 an hour agency fee, there's a lot of £5 an hour in £90,000 turnover for the VAT threshold. Whereas if you're charging £20 an hour, that's going to get that threshold a lot quicker. A lot of agencies will not need to charge VAT and can have quite a good profit margin.
Yeah, it's that VAT that cripples a lot of people. And I know a lot of us in the industry hate that VAT registration point. And so you can avoid it for longer. You can't avoid it forever, depending on how you
but if you think, £5, £20, you can avoid it for 4 times longer. That's a significant length of time that you can avoid the VAT threshold perfectly legally, provided everything else is set up correctly.
Yes. So, okay, so that's what it is. I'm being honest, I'm listening to how you're describing it. I'm not seeing a lot of downside. So talk me through here why everybody isn't on the agency model, because I'm going to make more money, it sounds like, as a business owner. Why would I not go straight onto the agency model?
I think one of the things that stops most people doing it is either they've already built a business on the other model, and then like us, they're just like, oh, well, I'm not sure I could change this monster that I've created into something completely different. I'm not sure that's entirely true that you couldn't. But I think also people don't understand it. So they think maybe there's something that they're missing. I think there's also a big fear, and it's probably an easier thing to happen, is that the cleaners will end up just working for the clients direct. And also that the agency owner, the clients will be looking at the agency owner and going, well, what the hell do you do for your money? So, yeah, I think if you're going to do it, you're going to need to be able to market and sell what you are doing for your money to the cleaner and to the client, because that will be your biggest risk point, I think, is why should the client, after a few months, the client and the cleaner have got the relationship, what are you even doing as an agency model?
Yep. But I think what you see is a lot of franchises use the agency model because it is a way of growing your business very rapidly, isn't it? So if you buy into a franchise, quite often this is the model of business that you're buying into.
Yeah. And actually, I think I'm not going to mention my name, but there's a couple of big franchises in the UK, and I'm assuming that they're international, that use this agency model. It works really well. They don't have a brilliant reputation for how they deal with their cleaners, but that could be down to the individual franchise owners. So I'm not going to comment on that as an overall thing, but that's what people see as the agency model, though. But I also think people just come into this industry quite a lot as solo cleaners, and they start that way, and therefore they believe that that's the model to follow when they start taking on and building a team, is that they'll pay the cleaners, the clients will pay them, and it's all sorted. So maybe there's a lack of understanding that this option is out there, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you'd have to almost be deliberately starting a business with this model rather than becoming an accidental business owner and sort of growing through your own success into it. You'd have to actively go, I'm starting a cleaning agency from zero. I am never going out cleaning. which is really what you probably are going to have to do, I am just going to get people in and match them up, like you say, a matchmaker.
Yeah. And I think, if you come into it with that mindset of that's my role, is to find fantastic cleaners and match them with brilliant clients that are, going to have a really good sort of working relationship. And if you can help manage that relationship, because I do think you would need to be involved a lot more than perhaps some of the agencies are, because if you think about our experience when we're on sales appointments where somebody's had a solo cleaner and they weren't quite cleaning to the standard the client wanted, but they didn't want to then have that awkward conversation. So they never said anything. They just cancelled and they brought us in instead. And they don't mind telling us when we've missed a bit, because we're a different relationship from them having to manage their own solo cleaner, if you like. And I know the solo cleaner has their own business, but from a client's point of view, they feel like it's a different relationship. And maybe the agency model is like a nice hybrid of that. So you get the benefit of a solo cleaner who can be amazing, but you also get the benefit of an agency there to mediate if there's a problem.
I think this is interesting because actually, how much can the agency owner impact the quality of the service delivered? They really don't have a lot of control at that point, do they?
No, but that's why I think clients would then question the fee. Why am I continuing to pay the fee when this agency is not involved in this relationship anymore? And a lot of the time, I'm providing all the cleaning. I'm talking about me as a client. I'm providing all the cleaning products. I'm providing all the cleaning equipment. I'm paying the cleaner. I'm actually managing the cleaner because they phone me when they can't turn up. And I think that's where the mistake comes from the agency's point of view, that, to take their, whatever it is, £5 an hour, should they be providing something more than just the introduction? Otherwise, they're a recruitment agency and not a cleaning agency.
Having worked in a recruitment agency, that's exactly what they do. Literally, when you have contractors, that's what we introduce.
Yeah. And that's where I'm sort of thinking, if you want to be a recruitment agency, great, but that's different from a cleaning agency. From the client's perspective, they're going to have expectations that you're going to continue to be involved in this relationship. Otherwise, you've just introduced them to a cleaner and then you walk away. And therefore, you're probably not earning your fee 6 months down the line, are you? You're not done anything for 6 months. So although I know we can't train self-employed cleaners, there's going to be an element of, okay, so if the cleaner's not going to be available, would the cleaner let client know, or are they going to manage that between them? And, one of the reasons people have cleaners is they've got busy lives and they don't actually want the hassle. They just want their house cleaned. And maybe they've gone for the agency model because it's cheaper or because the person running it was really good at selling them the service, but they don't want the hassle of managing their own cleaner. So I wonder with the agency model, whether you're almost becoming a managed model because you have to add those additional things in, but it's still relatively hands-free, I would say, because you're not going to train them. You're not there every day handing out keys to the cleaners, and you're not, there at the end of a phone for the customers and the cleaners on a daily basis. But I'm not sure you can be completely hands-free, even with the agency model.
It's very scalable. In terms of money, you make more money for less work, but you can't keep adding more and more agency fee unless you are delivering more quality and service. Is that what you're saying? There's a finite amount what you can charge without adding a bit of add-on value.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think there'll be ways of doing that in a clever way, and, you can use some automation, can't you, to be interacting and being involved a little bit. And also when it comes to quality, should you be doing a spot check every few months? Should you be actually doing something that involves you visiting that client and checking everything's okay? Because if I said at the beginning about, how clients can find it awkward to say something to the cleaner if they're not happy, you maybe need to not just be the matchmaker that finds them and introduces, but actually the one that, if there's a problem, you're the one that they will go to. And I don't know the answer to that, but for me, I think that solves one of the problems of you're not earning your fee anymore.
Do you know what I think, how I would run an agency model? And if I could, in some ways, I would start again and use the agency model. The kind of people that I think it's excellent for are very, very techie people. The ones that are quite happy. Say, for example, in my business, I'm very lucky. My husband wrote all the code for all our own software. It is fantastic. He would be exactly the right person to run an agency model because it's all automated. It's all, he would never have to speak to anyone. It's all done by emails. It's all done efficiently. You know, you could have phenomenal booking systems. If someone complained, you'd just have an automated thing saying, would you accept a refund or would you like this? And it would just be automated. Yeah. And for someone like that, they wouldn't even have to give up their full-time job. They could be running it as a side hustle, really an hour or two in the evening. That would run really perfectly and hands off. They may never even meet the cleaners.
Yeah. And also, you know, you could use AI to actually answer questions in an actual more sort of interactive and dynamic way. So there's lots of technology out there that can make you part of the relationship without it being sort of going too much into the fully managed model, and you may as well have gone with that in the first place. And also, I suppose that there are two different ways of doing the agency model as well. You could charge the client, but actually I don't know if that's being used in the UK, where actually the cleaner pays the agency for the privilege of being given the work. But either way, I don't think the payment methods matter too much. For me, it's more about what is the ethos of the business? How involved are you? Are you a recruitment agency for cleaners to clients, or are you an actual part of the process and a genuine agency that's continuing to sort of work in that relationship?
You're talking a bit like Bark, aren't you? So Bark, for example, I would pay to go and find a job lead. Yeah. I might pay my £20 in credits or whatever it is. And then they provide that job lead, and then that's it, they're out. It's cost them, they get paid their £20 and I deal with everything with that customer going forwards.
Yeah. And there's other options, like, you know, could you, if you offer training to cleaners, could you charge them for that? So you're going to get premium training and therefore be able to earn premium rates when it comes to your agency. So there's lots of ways you can add value to everybody in the relationship and make this. So if you're going to run an agency, for me, I'd want to have the best agency and have the best model and do everything. You know, I'd want to be the Harrods of the agency, cleaning agency system, rather than, I'm not going to mention Aldi again, I'll get told off, but you know what I mean? I would rather be the best if I'm going to do it. And I'm sure there's clever ways of adding that value and keeping that relationship going. And I don't think it would be actually that difficult to do, and a far simpler model than the management model, a fully managed model. I'm kind of convincing myself here I need to change.
But what we're about to see, and I would be surprised if we didn't start to see this, is people are hacked off, annoyed at what's about to change, how much harder it's going to be doing the employed model, or the fully managed model, as you call it, with employed staff. And so I think we will see a shift towards this once quite a few cleaning businesses are now following the agency model, as already exists, by the way, and there are already some really established big players in the market. You know, how many customers are going to go, yeah, that's not really working for me. I just want all my services delivered. I just want it to be effort-free. I don't want to have to make phone calls. I don't want to have to deal with it. You know, for those of us that are already established in the employed model, I'd probably sit there and stay where I was. If I was borderline right now, I'd probably pick the agency model. But then it's hard, because if you started self-employed, then you probably just continue self-employed. And while we think it's easy to swap, actually you get quite entrenched in where you are, don't you?
Yeah, it's a bit like, you know, changing anything in our businesses is hard. Like, we pay weekly, I think you do still as well, don't you, for our cleaning staff? It would be incredibly hard to change them to monthly. It would be better for the business if we paid them monthly, but it's a change that we choose not to make because it would be so disruptive to our team. And I suppose this would be the same thing if we wanted to change them all to self-employed. That's a decision point. That's a process we'd have to take them through. It'd be a massive change for them and would be very disruptive. So we'd have to weigh up definitely the pros and cons of it. Even looking at changing our scheduling software. I've been looking at a few different softwares recently that do other things other than scheduling that could work together. And I look at it and I just go, oh, I'm not sure I could face it at the size.
Is this why I'm seeing more offers on the DCBM page about scheduling software? You've been doing all the research.
I have, yeah. So we already have a great deal with a couple of fantastic ones, ZenMaid and Jobber. Brilliant. We use ZenMaid, but we've also got Connect Team on board now, and yeah, I've been looking at a few others. So yeah, there will be some more offers on the DCBM website as I do my research for my own business, because why not? I'm going to help myself and I'm going to help our members at the same time.
Going on there, because I've definitely seen more offers popping up. Loving that, Diane. Well done, you.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is swapping to the agency model. Just out of interest, when we're talking software, does it matter which model you use? Are there specific softwares that go with each one?
I don't think so, because really, when it comes to the agency model and the cleaners and clients, you kind of just need some scheduling software, really, don't you, that gives you an overview of who's going where. I think where you could lose control is where the clients and the cleaners are rearranging and you might not know where people are, which is why I personally would think you need to be involved in that conversation. But yeah, I don't think you need anything specifically different. Although, having said that, I had a conversation in a call with somebody that I'm coaching, and they are actually creating an agency model from scratch. And one of the things she was saying, well, what about, a website where they pick the cleaner and this sort of thing? And I know care.com pretty much do this for carers, don't they? And you can literally click on the person, you can see what they do, see how much they charge, and you can contact them through care.com. But care.com have a lot of money behind them. And that's a big thing to build, but it's been built. And actually, I don't know that it couldn't happen for cleaners. And we've always sort of said, oh, well, nobody's going to pick a cleaner off a website. Well, a carer is even more, it's sort of personal than a cleaner. And yet people will pick a carer off the website. So maybe that's the route it might go down with a solid using tech in an agency model. I don't know.
I think/know that there is a lot of very similar ones already with big investment behind them that are being developed along exactly those lines. But that's not a new idea. And the previous ones, I mean, you only have
been
to
tried before, hasn't it?
Hustle.com, and I know they're not exactly what we're talking about here, but they're very similar. Like running the agency model with big, well-funded technology behind it is not a new idea. And for some reason, they keep ticking over. They don't sort of die a death, but none of them have really dominated the market or made a significant impact, apart from maybe a couple in London where you've got a more concentrated group. I'd say across the rest of the country, there's not a lot of options, is there? Because you need that concentration of cleaners and clients to make it work. And as soon as you start going into the smaller towns, like if I think of Essex, for example, you'd need a concentration in Ipswich, you'd need a concentration in Colchester, need a concentration of anywhere. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So you'd need to get big enough for it to work.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's like that mass that you need in order to make it work. And if somebody's going to go to a website and choose a cleaner, you need a lot of cleaners on there, don't you? And yeah, and also I suppose demand is quite high in the industry, so most people aren't going to need to put themselves on a website, are they? Because they've got the pick of work.
Yeah, and if for example, I could have clients come directly to me and I didn't have to involve the website, it's just a little bit of loss of control for me a little bit. So then I'd want, as a cleaner, I'd want that website. Well, what are you going to offer me? Are you going to do my billing? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? In which case we're going, oh, from a legal point of view, who's actually being paid here? So then for the ones that are running it, you can get round all of these things. You're then going, okay, so they've really got to be good at tech. They're going to have lawyers involved at this point. You're going to have good advice because actually you're really going to have to nail these problems.
Yeah. And going back to how you can manage all this. And I think if you start an agency model from scratch, I think it's a lot simpler and there's a lot of information out there to get you going. But for me, we talked about, you want to be the best agency. And, if I'm going to create any business, I want it to be the best it can be. So how do we manage that quality? I said, do you need to just go and visit the client every few months? How are you going to manage that quality when you can't train them? You can't really monitor them on a daily basis, whether they're staying for the full 2 hours or whatever it is they've agreed with the client. You've got less control. It's up to the cleaners that you're taking on, isn't it? How are you going to sort that quality control?
Wouldn't be aiming for the best quality in the world, because like you talk about Harrods, for example, you want to be Harrods. Well, Harrods isn't in every single town and city.
No.
In London. And I think if you go for that premium model that you're talking about, then you are not going to go for a mass market model. And what we're talking about as an agency is a mass market model. As I said, An agency works well when it has a high density of both cleaners and customers. So it can be challenging to move into new areas. So if I was going to run an agency model, I'm going for the most hands-off automated model possible. I would find a city or a large town close to me because it's easier if there's a problem. Or if you don't need to be there, does it matter entirely?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm thinking is, this could be you could build a national business because you technically wouldn't need to go and see the client nor meet the cleaner in person. We've got technology now, we can meet over videos, and then the cleaner and the client meet together to decide whether they're a good fit.
If it goes wrong, first of all, even in a high quality business, it goes wrong. But let's say it goes wrong. You just have a list of solutions that they pick, right? And then that's that, really, isn't it? You're not going to get involved. So you're talking about delivering high quality service. I wouldn't. I just would go, that's my remit. And if you have a higher turnover of customers, then you have a higher turnover of customers, but you're offsetting that with the lower costs of actually finding customers and the fact that actually, you're not doing a lot for your money. So actually we can have a much higher turnover. So does it need to be high quality? Does that damage the industry? Yes, I think it does. And actually, like from my point of view, we're like, can we not go high quality? But actually, as a business owner, could I? Yes.
And I think that's a key, obviously my sort of like mindset and value is that I want to make sure I create the best cleaning business, but then also actually I need to create a profitable, sustainable business. And actually, if the model is that it's up to the cleaner to deliver the right service, and if the client's not happy, they can let you know and you'll replace the cleaner, then you are kind of managing the quality control without actually physically having to be there, aren't you? So maybe it's like a let it go situation of actually it's not your issue. It's part of, it's just the agency model. That's just what it is. You don't worry quite so much about the cleaning.
Yeah.
I hate saying that. I hate saying that though. It doesn't feel right.
Yes, it's different to what you and I have built our businesses doing. But that being said, I can see it worse. And again, you talk about the care industry. They just pick a carer and that's that. If you want really good service, then you go for your premium caring companies. Like that's what you get. And they're going to be vetted and they're going to have what I hear a lot about care and particularly some of our elderly customers, I need someone local that speaks English. They want them from the local town. It's all hyper local. And if you can do that, then you can really nail it.
That's interesting, actually, comparing the two industries, because there was a conversation in one of the groups that I'm in locally where it was like eye-wateringly expensive care fees was, I think it was £48 an hour with an agency, a care agency. And then they were like, somebody was saying, well, care.com, they're £15 an hour. And we get that in our industry, don't we? The two extremes, if you like. But you're not getting the same service from going on care.com and finding a cleaner. You take the risk, don't you? Whereas the agency, you would hope, has vetted these people and understands their background and that they're able to deliver the service. Isn't a cleaning agency going to need to do the same to a certain extent?
Well, if I look at my staff, we max them out at 5 hours. If things go horribly wrong, they work up to 5.5 to 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
Physically, we feel that beyond 5 hours, they are burnt out. Well, if you go, and they get paid well for doing this, but if somebody's working for this sort of, for your £14 an hour as a self-employed cleaner, they're going to want to whack out 10 hours a day. They're doing this to, make money. They're not often having their regular clients. They are churning through and making money. And so, you're not going to necessarily get that same level of care and quality because the people that want that stability are going to work for the employers, because it will give them all that stability so they can just clean. So it's almost different people. And if I was starting a business as a self-employed cleaner, I might start off working for an agency because I need money, guaranteed money coming in. Then I move to working for myself. Whereas a lot of people do not want that hassle to go through all of that. They would rather just take a job, work their school hours. I want to work 5 hours a day. I know I'm going to get paid. It's going to be weekly. I'm going to get no stress, no hassle. Whereas you get everything. If you work through an agency, you've got to do your own billing. Well, it depends. Do you have to do your own billing? Let's assume you're going to have to do your own billing.
Yeah, I mean, if the agency model is going to stay legal, then the cleaner has to be responsible for the client has to pay the cleaner direct. It's the simplest option for otherwise you're really stepping over boundaries, and actually you're probably becoming more into the fully managed model but using self-employed contractors. And do you think it's any more risky in an agency model that that self-employed cleaner is going to take clients, is going to just work for those clients on their own?
Think it's risky, it's almost guaranteed, because as I said, that's how I would start out. You start for an agency, you find your feet, you make your mistakes while working for them, and then you get your own clients. But once you leave that agency, if that customer leaves and then they contact you and you start 3-6 months later, there's not much that the agency can do. It's very hard to protect. And I know they can put clauses in and things, but if they've both been gone for 3 to 6 months, are you ever going to know?
No. But then doesn't that happen in the employed model? You must have had people leave and take some customers.
I think the thing about the agency model is, again, we're talking about scale. And let's say 1 or 2 or 3 cleaners do that. Do you care if you've got 100? You just accept it as part of it, wouldn't you? I know you could chase it and there's a lot you can do, but actually there's a certain amount where you accept, I'm churning through here.
Yeah, maybe the turnover is just going to be there regardless, and the turnover of clients might be there regardless. And I suppose if you're only having to sell at, say, 20, even £25 an hour, which is still cheaper than an employed model can be when you've got VAT on top as a business the same size, maybe you don't worry about it because it's easier to get clients.
When you say sell, are you even selling? They are literally just booking on your website. You may not even have a conversation.
Yeah.
So they are just booking. So you talk about selling, the cost of sales are so little. The cost of recruitment is going to be relatively low as well, because again,
so they put in their requirements, you then match them with the cleaner, and then off they go. Not as involved, are you?
You wouldn't have to be charging 25. You could comfortably be making a good profit or turnover. You'd make your £5 at £20 an hour. Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of explaining this to you. Like, you understand the legalities. I'm like, well, it doesn't just would work. It absolutely does work. And so there's people out there doing this, not just the big franchises. There are people on smaller levels in almost every town and city in the country that this is working really well for.
And really, I suppose, it's giving cleaners work. Great. So long as they're looked after, I'm happy with that. It's meaning that a business owner can grow a great business and not worry about VAT until they're 4 times fully managed model. And also it's making cleaning more affordable, isn't it? And that has been a complaint recently, hasn't it? From within the industry and without, that cleaning is getting too expensive. And there are good reasons for that. And it has to be expensive. But actually this allows more people to actually benefit from having a cleaner as well, doesn't it? So it kind of wins on a lot of levels, doesn't it? I quite like the model. I still like the employed model as well, because from the cleaner's point of view, I think they get a lot more stability, don't they? Sometimes people are working in an agency model because they think it's the only option.
But the point is, we have a really flexible industry. The point is there's room for everyone. And I don't think there's a right or wrong. So you and I are hashing it out, going, well, that would be good and that would be good. And I think genuinely both of us could make either model work. I think if we went, yeah, that's what we're going to do. I genuinely think I think there's downsides to both models. I think it's hard work. I think you're going to come across issues. I think you're going to have you have quality issues on both of them, but you'd have more quality issues there. So you'd have more of a churn, more unhappy customers, staff wondering what you're even doing for your money. You're going to have all of that, and you're not going to feel particularly necessarily proud of what you do. But then if you talk about the fully managed service, you're like a counsellor to everyone. So, there's upsides and downsides here.
Family therapy in the morning, isn't it? Yeah. Could you transition though? So, okay, we're saying that we would probably find it hard to transition, but we could do it. It really would be just a case of, you inform your staff and give them the option of becoming contractors. You'd adjust your pricing. So your pricing would go down. Your customers would love it. You'd just update all your contracts, terms of service. Could you do it?
I wouldn't do it like that. I think it's too different. If I was established as a fully managed service, I would start a separate company and go into competition with myself. So I would have an entirely separate agency, totally unrelated name, because your quality is going to decline. It is a totally different service. And I think to transition would be too challenging in people's minds. And also you'd have to take all your staff off employed to self-employed. And I just don't think that's fair. So I would start up a competitor to myself. Ideally not in the same town if you live near a few of them, but I would start it. So, and then I would just start growing that from scratch or buy someone else's that's already started.
But then what would you do? You're going to continue to grow your current business and then grow this new business. At some point, you're going to want to close one. And we get, well, no, I mean, a good business, you shouldn't close it if it's working well. But we get people, and we're a different example because our businesses are bigger, and we also, and you also, I'm just going to say this about you, not me. You're a bit bonkers, Louise, to just go, well, I'll just start another one alongside it. But we get asked the question, and we've been asked the question this week. They've got a relatively small business. Can I change to the agency model? You absolutely can. It's possible.
Well, I think it's harder to change it than to start again. So I guess if you're a smaller business, and I'm talking about a limited company, I could open another limited company. I already have a management team in. I would just go, right, let's just start this other one. So I get what you're saying. Yes, that's a lot easier for me to say. If I was self-employed with 3 or 4 staff and I wanted to transition to the agency model, I don't know, Diane. I think there would be, if I was going at that stage, it would be hard to start a separate one because it's too intertwined. You'd be using too many resources. You'd be an absolute tax and legal nightmare there. So you would have to, shut down, make all your staff redundant or give them notice and give your customers notice. Then you'd start again. So let's say you give them 4 weeks notice, then you would open up, you'd give them the option that they could move to this new business, I guess. But you would fundamentally have to close your business down and start. I can't see how you could run them both at the same time.
No, I think it'd be very difficult, but it's possible to change it all over. And like I said, I think the team could potentially like it if you can sell it to them well, and that they're going to, be independent. You can sell it to your clients. I think basically based on price, you could sell it to your clients. There might be a hard sell though, because if you think about why some clients choose the fully managed model, and one of our selling points is we employ our team, we look after them, they get travel time, etc., and we do look after them. There might be an ethical dilemma with clients, but I think a lot of them would quite like the price drop.
I think it depends a little bit. That comes down to who you are as a person. So my business was my baby and I'm involved, I'm hands-on, I'm proud of it. And I've already said the kind of person that would do really well in the agency model is a techie person that's happy to be hands off. I just think that they're almost fundamentally different people, aren't they? What you want from a business, what makes you proud, what you want to give and what you want to get. I don't know how many people could be happy in both.
Well, we've already sort of talked about this, where I was like, if I'm going to build any business, I want it to be the best business. And it makes me uncomfortable to think that if I was to create the best agency, that it would involve me having to let go of some of the things that I value, just because it's a better business model. So yeah, maybe that's the dilemma here, isn't it? It's a bit like when people come to me and they say, oh, I'm thinking of going into commercial cleaning because I think it's more profitable or for whatever reason. And I kind of go, does that really fit with your young family? Because commercial cleaning happens at 10 o'clock at night and 5 o'clock in the morning, usually. So they might be sort of attracted to it because it looks like a really good business idea, but actually it doesn't fit with what they really want out of their business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you're running it as a partnership, if your business is already a partnership and you've already got a couple of different personalities in there and you are committed that this is about making money fundamentally not at the cost of everything else, but your primary desire from running a business is to make money, then I would shut it down and start again. For the short term, I just don't think, the model works. Both models work. It's what's right for you, isn't it? This is the thing for me. I would short term destroy my own business, open up an agency. I know in 6 months' time, I'd go, that was a bad idea, wasn't it? And then I'd try and swap back again. And I'd be going, oh, well, I've just lost everything, haven't I? Like, this is such a bad idea for me. But if from scratch, this is going to sound terrible. I feel like it's almost too late for me. Is that really bad? I know it's not, and I know we're never too old.
Yeah. No, I think I feel the same way. And I think that if you're listening and you've got a relatively small business, you're still relatively early on, it's probably a model to consider. You know, it looks like a really good model from the outside. I think there are some tweaks in there, some technology you can use to make it easier to keep you in the relationship without impacting so much on your time. And, you know, actually, you could be making the same profit as a fully managed business, but actually charging far less. So you'll have more clients, you can have more cleaners because you can pay them well. It could be a good option for you. It's not necessarily right for everybody, and you
And
might
you're
have to sacrifice some of your wish for 100% quality.
forgetting one thing, right? So the reason we're even talking about this is because the laws and the taxes and everything's changing in April for employers. But from what I've seen of this government, and it seems to be their objective, is to clamp down on every tax loophole. So we're like, well, this now suddenly becomes a better business model. But you know as well as I do, if people transition towards that and it becomes widely done, because it isn't just our industry, this is across all industries, they're just going to clamp down on everyone. And we're going, the benefit of the agency model is actually you don't have to register for VAT. And so actually, don't you think they're going to clock onto that really, really quickly? And one of the other things is obviously self-employed people. The problem is the reason the government don't like self-employed people is it's much, much harder to chase them for the tax. So if they're employed, the employer is responsible and you have to submit it in real time. So it's making someone else basically do the chasing of the government. That is fundamentally what we have to do. So they don't really like self-employed because, you know, they submit once a year. Sometimes some do every 6 months, but once a year, and it's subjected. Are some things missed off, mislabeled? Yeah, probably that happens pretty readily across the board. So I just think that if I was to jump into this, and this is what I'm saying, yeah, it's fine for 4 months, but I think give it 6 months, and I think we'll see some major changes coming to this sector and the self-employed as well, unfortunately.
And there is already some changes in a pipeline, aren't there, around, you know, self-employed contractors. Are they workers? Are they not workers? So there's already some changes in employment laws that will come that might actually make it harder to use self-employed contractors. And I think, you know, you're right there. Is this a shiny penny? Is this my business isn't quite working? Can I fix it by changing to an agency model? Or can I fix it by going into commercial cleaning or carpet cleaning, or whatever fixes people think are going to come along? And I think sometimes it might be a shiny penny. And actually, if you just built your current business with the right principles in place and the right structure in place and the right pricing, then actually you can grow a really solid business that actually fits everything that you wanted out of your business in the first place, rather than switching to something that might be a shiny penny. Although I'm not, you know, I think the agency model could be a good option.
I think we saw this, if you think after COVID, so really it was a year or so where people were on furlough. And what we saw was the rocketing of new cleaning business. And they were like creaming in because every big cleaning business was closed. Their staff were furloughed. They're like, wow. And they grew fast. It was easy to recruit because loads of people were off work. It was fantastic. And then fundamentally, after a year, all the big players that had been established 10, 20, started coming back into the market. They reopened again. And the market had changed. The demands were different. Actually, you couldn't recruit. And what you saw was the bigger businesses that they could recruit, and suddenly they came in, and obviously they had money behind them. They had marketing, they had experience, they had recruiters. They could go in and do it. And those small businesses that had gone, this market's phenomenal, suddenly went, ow, this has just got really painful and hard. And I definitely noticed that at the point where I entered back into the market, I as a business entered back in at the same time as all the other established ones that had been furloughed. We were supporting people, business owners, all the way through, and they suddenly went, ouch. And I think if you jump onto the agency model, and there's nothing wrong with that, be really clear that there are a lot of people that are established in the industry with more money, more funding, and more experience. And if that model suddenly becomes more attractive, they will move. The same way as we saw fogging suddenly take off, the biohazard, there are people that can move and have more experience. So I've got to say, I'm always a little bit dubious of jumping on the latest. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, but if it's really great, there's people that are a lot better that will do it. And that would scare me a little bit if I was jumping into something new, knowing that I was about to be outcompeted in every way.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, we talked about technology. There are going to be technology companies that could turn all this on its head and change the industry at some point. Nobody's succeeded yet, but that doesn't mean it won't happen, because technology is changing every day. So it's a really interesting model. I think it's really good to sort of discuss the pros and cons, and whether it can work in our industry. And of course we know it can work, but whether we could change, whether smaller businesses can change. But I think fundamentally you want to build a business that works for you. So if you're going to make any change, make sure it's not just a shiny penny that you think is going to fix things.
Yeah. But yeah, good luck. Amazing. Thank you very, very much, Diane. And if you do need any help or support, we know an awful lot about it, and we would love to help you do it, even if we personally are not going to run businesses doing that. Thank you very much.